Welcome back. The topic for today is intimidation or bullying, and it's something that can be very subtle or very blatant. It can be done by men or women and to men or women, and it can be physical or mental. Now, I worked with many volatile people and people in positions of in power and authority. But I want to say firsthand, I was also rebellious by nature. I had a very domineering, sometimes threatening father who I often rebelled against. And even in school, in my early years, one time I was expelled from school for a week because a nun was admonishing me for going ahead and completing my arithmetic exercises in the workbook. And I got up from my desk, walked to the front of the room, and called her a black witch. Now, not recommending anybody do that. Um, I also noticed that, especially in the early years, there were many women who were also quite rebellious. Some made me look like a pussycat. Anyway, I want to give you three scenarios of intimidation in my career, how I handled it, and I'm not recommending that you do this because I definitely think that some of them impacted my career, and I could have lost my job over them. Scenario one. Before I get into the first scenario, all of these three scenarios were at a time when I was quite confident in my abilities to do computer design. And I was sought after for projects around the country by some pretty big companies. Now, scenario one, I was assigned to a project, and on the first day, told my assignment was to do a design for a piece of the system. It was springtime, and I was told it should be completed by July. So I sat down with my boss, my manager on that project, and said, I can't do that. It's impossible. And he said, that's your assignment. That's your time frame. You need to do it. And I said, I can't. And if you think you can find somebody to do it, then go find him. And I said him because at that time it was, mostly men. So I walked around with a frown on my face for several days. And one night after hours, two men came into my cubicle, picked up my chair and my desk. They had asked me to stand up, and then took them to one of the top executives' office. And they shoved my desk facing a wall in his office. And he was sitting there and didn't say a word to me. I was mortified. I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was in kindergarten, being treated that way. Anyway, what I did in this scenario is I wrote a letter to the head of my firm and told him what was happening, basically, and that the project was not going to get done on time. And I didn't hear anything for a week, so I called his home, hard to believe, and his wife set up a time for me to talk with him. He didn't commit to anything, but a month later, all of a sudden, the executive that I sat with in his office was replaced. Okay, now scenario number two. I was working with a big tech company, and they were developing a system for my firm. Okay, and after about a year, the programmers were coming to me telling me that the system probably wouldn't work, and they had big concerns. So I went to one of the project managers and told him about this. And he just said, it will work. And he was a very threatening man anyway. And he had these dark rimmed glasses. He pulls them down, kind of peers at you over, the glasses, one of those kinds. Anyway, I said, I doubt very much that it will work. And he said, I'm telling you, it will work. I didn't do anything. I left his office and I told my superiors. And in fact, the system didn't work. So millions and millions of dollars was lost for both of our firms. Now, when I look back on that, I realized that he really didn't do anything except speak very firmly to me. But I felt threatened. And I learned from that, somebody can talk harshly to me, but it's up to me whether I feel threatened or not. Another thing that possibly I could have done is say to him, I feel threatened by your words and your tone of voice. Now, that could have made things much worse. He could have really gotten angry at me, but I would have felt more empowered. All right, scenario number 3. This was a situation where a boss told me to do something that I thought would negatively impact an employee, and I refused to do it. He was very angry, very upset with me. So I called HR and asked them to set up a meeting with my boss and me and a representative from HR in the meeting. So after hours one night, the three of us sat there while I was telling both of them why I didn't want to do this and why I thought it was wrong, basically. And I watched my boss' face getting redder and redder and redder. And then I saw him pick up his hand, his arm, kind of swing it forward and then stop. And I was really grateful there was an HR representative in that meeting. Now, like I said, some of these scenarios that I talked about probably did impact my career negatively. And I could have even lost my job for refusing to do something. But when you're faced with intimidation and bullying, I want you to know that you do have options. I encourage you to talk to a family member, a friend, a coworker that you trust, another higher manager in your company, or HR, or the EEOC. There are lots of alternatives to handling somebody who is intimidating and bullying. Now I'd like to get into the 3 questions for this video. Question 1. How prevalent do you think intimidation and bullying are in the workplace today? And who does it, men or women? Now, we know that it's prevalent in social media. We hear about it all the time, and often we hear about it in school situations. Question 2. What forms of intimidation or bullying have you observed in or outside of the workplace? How did you handle the situation, and would you handle it the same way again? Question 3. How do you feel about whistleblowers? And I certainly was a whistleblower at times. Are there circumstances when it is appropriate to be a whistleblower? Now, the next topic is going to be having responsibility without having the title, pay, or position. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time.